to the Pat Mayo Experience Week 13 injury report, plus a little bit later on, I'll be digging into the FanShare Sports Sentiment Rankings to find out who the most popular DraftKings players of the week at each position are going to be, and maybe some pivot spots to help you decrease the ownership of your teams to get on some studs who just no one else is going to own. Even some good matchups, too. It's kind of crazy. And my guest today is Pat Mayo, because I don't think you've heard enough of my voice so far this week, and I want to breeze through this because there's an awful lot of injury news in Week 13 that could have a big impact on your teams heading into what for a lot of people is a make-or-break week. You win this week, you're in the playoffs. You lose, you're going home, and that's the frank reality for a lot of people. So let's get right into it. The guys that have been declared out for Week 13 already, there's a long list of them, so let's get right into it. First up, we got Damian Williams. The Miami running back has been declared out, so that means Kenyon Drake is going to see upwards of 90% of the snaps probably up against the Denver Broncos. I know the pass rush is fierce, but Jay Cutler is back under center for the Miami Dolphins, and with his ADOT this season, the average depth of target being 7.1 yards. Expect a lot of dump-offs to Kenyon Drake in this spot. His floor in PPR leagues is going to be amazing. What's his upside against a pretty good defense? Who knows? Maybe he lucks into a touchdown somewhere, but like projecting 5 catches in this matchup is something you're going to want to do. And when we get to the FanShare Sports Sentiment Rankings, he's the #1 running back of the week. That's where everyone is going because they want to pay down at the position, and I can get on board with that. If he's the most popular running back of the week, I can understand a fade in GPPs, but for your season-long lineups, PPR-wise, and listen, even in standard leagues, he's going to get enough volume that he's going to be a running back 2 at worst, it would seem. He's probably going to end up somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 touches. So Kenyon Drake is a guy that you're going to want to play with Damian Williams out. More guys that are going to miss Week 13. Chris Hogan, expected a bigger market share for Gronk, and Brendan Cooks. He's around 30% market share whenever Chris Hogan sits, so that's great news. John Brown with his toe will miss another week. Will Fuller in the ribs, sitting out again. Tennessee has been really weak up against receivers so far this season. But it's receivers 2 and 3 that have really killed them. That doesn't mean I dislike DeAndre Hopkins. I love DeAndre Hopkins this week, but it could provide a good role for Bruce Ellington and potentially Braxton Miller to get involved as well. I mean, they're not awful starts this week. I like Ellington more than I like Braxton Miller. I mean, the Bruce of Ellington. I'm on that guy every single week anyway, whenever Will Fuller sits. But I think this could be a really nice opportunity if you're stuck at receiver to pick someone off the waiver wire and plug him in. I mean, this is a spot to do it, and he's $4,000 on DraftKings, so I don't love that. There are cheaper receivers who I think will end up having more volume and higher upside that I kind of like, but Will Fuller is going to sit, so Miller and the Bruce of Ellington back on the radar. Allen Hurns going to miss the game with an ankle injury for Jacksonville. Allen Hurns typically destroys Indianapolis over and over. His past 4 games, he's averaging like 20 DraftKings points up against them. That means that D.D. Westbrook will likely slide into that role. Could be Keelan Cole. Don't overlook Keelan Cole. Don't ever forget about him because his ADOT is super high. They take shots with Keelan Cole. And Blake Bortles in the past has played really well against Indianapolis, but D.D. Westbrook would be where I would lean there. I know Marquise Lee's going to get talked up, but it's always that stretch receiver that presents a lot of problems for the Colts, and D.D. Westbrook is that guy. One of my favorite plays of the week. Super cheap as well, so if you had to decide between like a $4,100 D.D. Westbrook or a $4,000 Bruce Ellington, D.D. Westbrook is the play. He probably has a better floor and upside than someone like Bruce Ellington. Bruce Ellington only for some of those deeper formats. More guys that are going to miss time. Ty Montgomery, he is out with rib injury. I'll talk about Aaron Jones in a bit and speculate on the Packers situation. Kelvin Benjamin going to sit with a knee problem for the Bills. Robert Woods going to miss probably at least until Week 15 with the shoulder injury. Expect a lot of targets for Cooper Kupp and Josh Reynolds. Patrick Peterson expected to lock down Sammy Watkins in this matchup, so I wouldn't play him. Play the other two, though. Charles Johnson, D lineman for the Carolina Panthers, is suspended, so watch out. Probably no pressure on Drew Brees, and probably makes the running game a little bit easier. We'll see if Luke Kuechly can contain that at all. Mike Tolbert, the Tolbert report, is going to miss his 3rd consecutive week with a hamstring problem. Travaris Cadet has been backing up LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy did not practice on Friday, although he is expected to get the green light come Sunday up against New England in a really good spot. However, if some unforeseen circumstance happens and LaShawn McCoy does not play, then fire up some Travaris Cadet. He's a pass-catching back primarily, but I mean, against the Patriots in a game where they're 9-point underdogs, I expect the Bills to be passing a lot. So that could be a spot last second if you need to pivot onto somewhere. That's something I would just keep on the radar. It's probably less than 5% to happen. LaShawn McCoy is really expected to play here, but just something to watch out for. Keep it on your radar. Desmond Trufant Not playing with a concussion for the Colts, which means Thielen and Diggs, no need to worry about either of them. Fire them up. Michael Crabtree suspended, and Amari Cooper going to miss the game with a concussion. Tell the truth, as Will Smith has once said. These concussion problems are getting out of control. That leaves Seth Roberts, Cordell Patterson, Jared Cook, and Johnny Holton to get involved. You might see some extra Rocket Richard in the passing game as well up against the New York Giants. The Oakland is a big favorite in this game, so expect more running with Marshawn Lynch and basically keep Derek Carr out of the air. But I would go Seth Roberts, then Cordero Patterson, then Holton. People know my stance on Jared Cook. He's the worst, but a lot of people are playing him. He's the chalkiest tight end of the week. I always think, Jared Cook in a smash spot, it's always a good time to fade him. I'm just not a Jared Cook fan. If you own Jared Cook, probably a decent spot to fire him up. Ryan Kelly, this is an interesting one, is going to miss the Colts-Jags game with a concussion, which means after getting sacked 8 times last week, Jacoby Brissett is probably down his best offensive lineman going up against Jacksonville, who sacked Jacoby Brissett over 10 times last time these two teams met up, so that's even worse. I know Jacksonville is a very expensive defense, $4,500. And when we get to the QB sentiment tags this week, the two most talked up and likely chalkiest quarterbacks of the week are going to be Rivers and Brady, the two most expensive quarterbacks, which means you probably can't afford a $4,500 Jags team. So, although everyone kind of says this, the Jags are the best defense of the week for season-long rankings, and they are. They're in by far the best spot here. Game flow-wise, Brissett's probably going to have to pass like 35 to 40 times in this matchup. The Jags D is going to get to him on probably half of those, at least with the pressure, pressure, volume, sacks, turnovers. It all leads to a lot of fantasy points. I actually think the Jags defense may come in under-owned compared to how much everyone likes them because they're so expensive. So if you just want to pivot down at quarterback or take Goff or take Keenum or one of these lower-end guys, I actually think that going up to Jacksonville could be a really nice move. I don't expect them to be the chalk defense. I don't expect them to be 20%, maybe 10%, even if it gets to that. But the first place that people always love to save their salary cap at any point is that defense. They'll pay down at defense before they pay down at quarterback. Although, if we see it, the Jags are in probably the best spot of any team this season. So having a few Jacksonville lineups for your DST is the way to go. More players that are going to miss the games. Telvin Smith is out with a concussion for Jacksonville. This could just end up being a decent spot for Frank or potentially Jack Doyle to get some room up over the middle. I like Jack Doyle this week a lot. We'll talk about him more when we get to the tight end sentiment rankings. Charcandrick West, this is interesting, is going to miss the game for personal reasons. The Chiefs have decided not to activate anyone from the practice squad, which means we're only left with the Hunts, Kareem Hunt and Akeem Hunt. But the big thing here with Charcandrick West is the amount of snaps that he was actually playing. And this has somewhat hurt the bottom line of Kareem Hunt over the weeks because he's not getting involved in the passing games where, when the Chiefs were winning so many games earlier in the year, it was all Kareem Hunt. They were winning, turn around, hand the ball off to Kareem Hunt, and boom, he's gone. He's going to get you your volume every single week. One of the problems that he's had recently is that West has been eating into his snap share because the games have been so close and he's the better receiving back. So the past 3 games, Charcandrick West has played 28%, 27% and 40% of the team's running back snaps. I don't expect Akeem Hunt to really take over that role. I would expect Kareem Hunt to actually be on the field in a lot of these third down situations, a lot of these passing situations, and that can really boost his floor and give him extra opportunities to break a big one. I'm not really banking on Kareem Hunt being super good this week. I don't think he's in a great spot. The Jets defense is actually quite good against running backs, but if there's ever a week where there's an extra little added incentive for you to play Kareem Hunt, especially in your season-long lineups, and potentially even on DraftKings, because no one's going to use him. He's going to get some extra run, so expect the volume to increase for Kareem Hunt this week. It's a spot I don't love, but I understand why you might want to go to that move now that Charcandrick West is out. That's a really big obstacle. Hopefully he can finally come through for us after he basically got everyone to 6-0 starts to begin the season. He's been dreadful since. But this week for Kareem Hunt should be his biggest volume week in quite some time. The rest of the guys missing the games, we have Mike Williams out for the Chargers with a knee problem. Kerwin Williams and his ribs, unlikely to play for the Arizona Cardinals. And Aqib Talib is suspended for the Denver Broncos. Could open up some room for Devontae Parker or Kenny Stills on the outside, depending on who Chris Harris covers. But again, I think Kenyon Drake and Jarvis Landry are your 2 best bets in that game from the Dolphins offense. Guys that are doubtful for the week, not many, because most people have already been declared out. Adrian Peterson with his neck injury is going to be a true game time decision. And this is really interesting. So he's less than 50-50 to play in my mind because he hasn't practiced the last 2 days, but he's Adrian Peterson. He's a veteran. He could always get the call. And what makes this problematic for a lot of fantasy owners and DraftKings players, this is in the later set of games. So we're not going to know at 11:30 a.m. when the actives and inactives come out whether or not AP is going to play. You're going to have to wait until the early slate starts and then adjust your moves. So if Williams isn't going to play and potentially Peterson is off the board, I've loved DJ Foster the entire week. And maybe it's, their saying kind of goes, is it contrarian or is it stupid? Most people have been calling me stupid with this one. But whether Peterson plays or not, I'm still going to use DJ Foster. I picked him up to play in some deeper PPR leagues as a running back to flex play because I need the help. But on DraftKings, he's the bare minimum, $3,000. He's a pass-catching specialist. And the reason that I really came to DJ Foster to begin with was the game flow scenario that I expect the Cardinals to be in against the Rams. They're 7-point underdogs, and every time that the Cardinals have been underdogs in a game, so they've had Adrian Peterson, he sucked anyway. So don't just worry about Adrian Peterson. If you just want to bench that guy, go nuts. But last week, when they got into a close game against the Jags and after Kerwin Williams got hurt, DJ Foster played 25% of the snaps anyway. He is trying to take over that Andre Ellington role. They need to get a look at someone so when David Johnson eventually returns next season, maybe there's a complimentary back that can give this guy a break. Playing him Le'Veon Bell style and giving him like 700 touches a season may not work out in the long run. Who would have knew? But if DJ Foster can inch up towards like 40%, even if Adrian Peterson plays, or potentially take over the full-time role here, could be Elijah Penny. He could get the goal line work. I don't know how that works out. But there is a scenario where DJ Foster could end up playing 60% of the snaps for the Cardinals this week. And how good he is out of the backfield catching balls, he could return 5x very easily. If he finds the end zone, I mean, you're just looking at a bonanza here for DJ Foster. I'm going with him. It's probably a terrible move, but hey, I'm giving it out here. I'm going to be playing him. I think you should too, and especially if we don't know about Adrian Peterson because of the late game circumstance, not a lot of people are going to late swap onto him. I'm not even going to late swap onto him. I'm just going to play him either way. But if you just want to wait and see, I think you should allocate some budget and try to rework your rosters that you do have a lot of people in these later games, or at least leave someone in your flex spot so you can late swap onto a receiver or running back depending on what the situation is. But I like DJ Foster this week. More guys that are doubtful for the week. Doug Martin, concussion. As of this time, I haven't heard if he's playing or not, but it looks like he's really not going to play with his concussion. Del Detroit, questionable. A lot of these guys, too. We got Christian McCaffrey with his shoulder injury. He practiced on a limited basis Thursday and Friday. Saturday, apparently, he's going to determine whether he plays or not. I think they really do need him this week as a pass-catching specialist out of the backfield, so keep your eye on him. Aaron Jones. This one sucks so much. I mean, if you're Aaron Jones, it's probably great, or if you own Aaron Jones, it's probably a great situation. However, he's been dealing with this knee injury. He was expected to miss 3 weeks, but now he's been back at practice on a limited basis. He's a game-time decision for Green Bay this week up against Tampa, but the good thing is this is a part of the early slate, so we will know. I love Jamal Williams, who played 100% of the running back snaps for Green Bay last week without Ty Montgomery and Aaron Jones around. Ty Montgomery already declared out. If Aaron Jones doesn't play, cue up some Jamal Williams. He's going to have a special week against a terrible defense. Now, if Aaron Jones ends up playing, I would still expect Jamal Williams to get around 60% of the snaps, but that would drop him from a low-end mid-tier running back 1 for the week all the way down to a running back 2. That would make Aaron Jones a running back 3. I would still prefer Williams over Jones, but it just throws a whole wrench into the upside of the situation, and if it goes Jones over Williams, it's not going to be super stunning to me. But I would think that the guy who's healthy, who's been playing well and working in the passing game pretty top-notch, would be the guy to see a larger percent of the snap share than the guy coming off a knee injury who's been limited in practice all week. But that's something to watch. If you tune into Matchups Breakdown on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. on the DraftKings Facebook page, you will find out the spin on that circumstance as soon as it happens. More guys that are questionable. Rashard Matthews is a true game time decision. I would like Delaney Walker more than I would like Corey Davis. We've seen Corey Davis in this spot like 2 or 3 times now, and he's yet to come through. I want to see it happen first, but I love Delaney Walker both ways, even if Matthews plays, but I like him even more if Matthews ends up sitting. Devonta Freeman will be back with his concussion problem. Tevin Coleman, I would still expect to see the larger end of the snap share this week, although Devonta as a contrarian play is always really sneaky. I know it's a tough matchup against Minnesota. It's not one that I'm going to, but I understand the logic behind it. For the week, though, I like Coleman over Freeman in the spot. Sterling Shepard with his migraines looks like he's going to play at Oakland, but again, this is another later game, so you're not going to know unless they really declare him in early, which I doubt they're going to do, because why would you? But it's a spot that I like, even with Armisen back. Listen, it's Ingram. It's Sterling Shepard. Even with Geno Smith at quarterback, I really don't mind it all that much. He's just a volume magnet. You give the guy double-digit targets, he's going to do something with them, all right? If he leaves the game early, then, we're fucked, but this is the way it goes. Amir Abdullah popped up with a neck injury on the injury report. He's a game-time decision. Again, it's an early game, so we're going to know that. If not, Theo Riddick and Zach Zenner will probably see the majority of the workload because Dwayne Washington still dealing with a hip injury. LaShawn McCoy popped up with that knee problem. I think it's just a veteran day of rest. Everyone expects LaShawn McCoy to play, but if not, again, Traverse Cadet would be the pickup in that scenario. Greg Olsen looks like he's going to play with his foot problem, probably be on limited snaps again. You probably can't play Greg Olsen. Cameron Brate dealing with the hip injury. They say he's going to play, but if last second, again, this is another early game, this Tampa-Green Bay game, if Brate is, for whatever reason, declared out, O.J. Howard is an excellent price, widely available in a lot of leagues, so that's another one to keep on your radar for a last-second pickup if you need to pivot or move on to someone who just has a lot of upside, because you take Brate out of the equation, Howard is looking real good very quickly. Juju Smith-Schuster looks like he's going to be back for the Steelers with a hamstring problem. That is the Monday night game, so that's going to be a Saturday practice thing to pay attention to. Dante Moncrief popped up with a groin injury late in the week. He may or may not go. No one really cares against Jacksonville. Marshawn Lattimore, this is a big one just in terms of Kelvin Benjamin. We saw the target share over 50%. Among receivers, it was like 99% of market share at receiver for Devin Funchess last week. If there's no Marshawn Lattimore to shut him down, expect a bonanza week for Kelvin Benjamin. If Lattimore plays, I think he's a low-end wide receiver too, because Lattimore has been excellent so far this season. Trevor Siemian's dealing with the flu, but it looks like he's going to get the start because Paxton Lynch is out. Mike Davis returns to the backfield for the Seattle Seahawks. I wish they weren't 6-point underdogs, but it's encouraging to see him. I want to see how much he plays. I've picked him up in a lot of season-long leagues for a potential playoff run. Seattle is a very generous running back schedule, weeks 14 to 16. And if for some reason they say, you know what, Thomas Rawls, you reek. They've already been saying that. But eventually they're going to come to their senses and be like, hey, Eddie Lacy, you suck as well. You're a big fat dynamo who can't run the ball. Let's give the ball to Mike Davis here. Use J.D. McKissick as the pass-catching back and see where it takes us. If he can play around 40 to 50% of the snaps this week, I would start him next week for the Seattle Seahawks. I like Mike Davis a lot, available in like 95% of leagues. That's someone to look out for. And then finally, Jordan Matthews. And his knee problem looks like he's going to be a go. People are really digging Zay Jones this week, but in the best spot of all spots last week against the 32nd ranked defense against wide receivers, Zay Jones scored a touchdown. Sure, he had 3 catches for 33 yards on 10 targets. I don't think he's the highest upside play. I'm not banking on Zay Jones catching me 2 touchdowns, especially against the Patriots, who've been really shutting down offenses lately over the past 6 weeks. So when you really put it into some context, you have to look at what teams have done recently over the season-long numbers, because everyone lit up the Patriots the first 5 weeks. Has not been so much the case over the past month. But that is the injury report. I will get into the fan share sport tag sentiment rankings here in a second, but I'm going to go for a quick sig. I'll meet you on the other side. Welcome back to the Pat Mayo Experience, talking about the Fanshare Sports Sentiment Rankings, who are the most popular players at each position going to be, and where can you pivot on to? I'll get to the running backs to crack this off. Kenyon Drake, number 1 on the list. It's kind of stunning, to tell you the truth. I touched on this briefly before. At $4,900, he and Jamal Williams are 1 and 2. Then it's Dion Lewis, Jordan Howard, Alex Collins, Rex Burkhead, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, and then Marshawn Lynch. So the big thing here with Drake is PPR-wise, yeah, he's going to be a really safe player, probably more of a cash game play than a tournament play for me. I'm curious to see what happens with Jamal Williams, because obviously he's not as good of a play if Aaron Jones is out, or in, sorry, but if Aaron Jones is out, I much prefer Jamal Williams in a much softer matchup up against Tampa Bay as opposed to Drake up against Denver. So I would go to Williams over Drake in tournaments if you're going to take one of these chalky guys. In cash game play, if you wanted to go really high-end running back and then these 2 running backs if Aaron Jones is out, I think that makes some sense as well. Lewis and Burkhead, I mean, which one's it going to be? I would prefer Lewis, but I'm kind of pissed to see Jordan Howard trending so much up in tags, though. The one that's really kind of standing out to me is no one's playing Alvin Kamara this week. He is $8,400 on the main slate, and yeah, listen, I mean, Mark Ingram, that awful Mark Ingram, can come in and just have one of his games, but Alvin Kamara is averaging so many points per snap. It's ridiculous. Like, we look at advanced stats like yards per route run and yards per snaps and everything like that. Kamara is near the top of the list or at the top of the list every single one of those categories. And listen, he's been the best running back over like the past 4 weeks in a good matchup against Carolina, especially as the pass catching back. I don't mind Kamara as much. If no one's going to use him, I might take a crack or two at him. And really the only other guys, McCaffrey because of the injury, people aren't going to play him. Coleman because Freeman's return, people aren't going to play him. But I just think of the chalk report, those are the guys that you're really looking at. Drake and Williams. Williams less so if Jones ends up starting. And then Gurley and Melvin Gordon is really the top-end chalk if you're looking at it. But DJ Foster's not on that list yet, and that's someone to watch out for. Wide receivers to go through. If we look at the very top, Cooper Kupp comes in at number 1. He's in a great spot. A wide receiver, the slot receiver against Arizona just tends to light it up every single week. And Cooper Kupp, sans Robert Woods, saw double-digit targets last week anyway. Produced for us. Goff, Kupp, Josh Reynolds is a stack I really like this week if you're going up against Arizona. Number 2 on that list, though, is DeAndre Hopkins. Devonta Adams follows him, followed by Dede Westbrook, Keenan Allen, Brandon Cooks, Robbie Anderson, Marquise Lee, Zay Jones, and Seth Roberts. I really thought that more people would go with Cordero Patterson over Seth Roberts because of the big play potential. Maybe they will once all is said and done. But I do like Roberts more than I like Cordero Patterson. We all remember Seth Roberts as the guy who had more red zone targets than Amari Cooper all of last season. Only has 3 this year as they've tried to go back to Crabtree and Cooper. But sans those 2 guys, we can see a familiarity with Derek Carr and Seth Roberts in the red zone. And up against the Giants with no Janoris Jenkins around, could be a really spot-on play. Super cheap, though. I like Josh Reynolds more than I like both those guys, but you can play 2 of them if you really want to. It's not the craziest move. If we look at the top of the rankings, the guys that people aren't going to play this week, I was kind of surprised to see that Julio Jones wasn't getting super hyped up. We just saw Xavier Rhodes get lit by Marvin Jones. I know it's 10 days later, but Julio's coming off the big week. It's kind of surprising. Down, Desmond Trufant, Thielen, who's just been so good all year. He and Mike Evans are the 2 that are sort of that mid-tier in terms of ownership, along with Michael Thomas. No one's playing A.J. Green this week on the primetime slate, which we'll see when that comes around. No one's playing Devin Funchess, but if Lattimore sits, I'm going to Devin Funchess. That's the play that you want to be taking there. If Lattimore plays, I probably wouldn't play him because the upside is likely capped, but a lot of people aren't going to adjust their lineups that late on a Sunday morning to try to work Devin Funchess in, because there's a lot of guys in this area that are super popular, like Devontae Adams, even Mike Evans at that point. Cooper Kupp's right there. Tyreek Hill is another player. Tyreek Hill's another player basically that I use in GPPs every week. So most weeks it's really terrible, but he's a game changer when it comes to GPPs. So even if you wanted to play KCD and Tyreek Hill, try to get that double down. I don't love KCD at all. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. Terrible idea. Play Tyreek Hill, though, in GPPs. Always create at least a lineup or 2 that has one of those boom or bust guys in it, because the boom for Tyreek Hill is always big, and eventually, at least one time the rest of the season, you know this KC offense has to explode at some point. Let's move to quarterbacks this week. I had already teased it off the top that the 2 trendiest quarterbacks this week, when we look at it, are the 2 most expensive. It is Phillip Rivers against Cleveland, and then Tom Brady up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Josh McCown's next. Brett Hundley, Jared Goff, Tyrod Taylor, Case Keenum, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, and Blake Bortles. I mean, even if you look at my cheat sheet up on DKPlaybook.com, a lot of these guys who are super chalky, I really like, and I understand the reason that a lot of people do like them. I think Jared Goff as a tournament play makes some sense. Without Trufant and the Atlanta offense sort of clicking, it might take back to the air with Case Keenum. Jarek is also super sneaky in this matchup, only because it's a situation where they're going to have to be passing a lot. And when they pass, Jarek is on the field, and Atlanta sucks at covering pass-catching running backs. And we know that Jarek has that big play potential. And he's actually quite cheap this week, too. And everyone's sort of on the Latavius Murray train in the fact that he's better than Jerick McKinnon. I like Jarek a little bit more this week, although don't expect those goal line touches. It's going to have to be a longer, probably from outside 20-yard touchdown for Jerick McKinnon, which is a very hard thing to bank on. But if you're playing GPPs, you're going to need one of those scores to actually win. So Jarek is someone to look at there. Of the cheaper guys, I mean, I get Brett Hundley. It's a great matchup. We all just saw him in primetime look all right against Pittsburgh, but it was like 2 blown coverage and a screen pass. Not to say that it can't happen again against a terrible Bucs defense, but like, I honestly would play Geno Smith over him. Like, I know Geno sucks and Geno throws picks, but Oakland's defense reeks, and no one wants to use Geno Smith. And the weird thing is, it's so concentrated in the Giants offense that you know where the ball is going. I don't know who Geno's going to hook up with some of the other loser receivers, whether it's Travaris King or whether it's Roger Lewis, whoever he has the best rapport with. But I can almost pencil in, this is no guarantee, but I can almost pencil in double-digit targets for Sterling Shepard if he plays, and Evan Ingram. So if you have those 3 guys, plus what Geno Smith can do with his legs in terms of the rushing department, a Giants triple stack is probably not the likeliest thing of happening, but no one's going to own it, and Geno can do a lot at $4,500. I mean, we've seen Geno be a capable fantasy performer before. If he can rush in a touchdown, he's basically a 3x value to begin with. So if he can throw 2 touchdowns, rush one in a potential garbage time situation against a bad Oakland defense, I mean, that's where I would go if I was paying down, and I will at quarterback this week. If not, I like to pay up for Brady in that mid-range. I like Keenum, and I like Goff. Cam's a really interesting one, though, because no one's using Cam. We know that Cam kills it at the Superdome. And almost like, Dinkmeyer and Leone kept talking to me about this. They just use Russell Wilson every single week, even when Russell Wilson wasn't performing, because you know those boom Russell Wilson weeks are bigger than everyone else's week. I kind of feel the same way about Cam. He's always a great tournament quarterback because of the rushing touchdowns he can score. Generally speaking, when the Carolina scores a touchdown, he's not at Russell Wilson levels right now, where he's accounted for over 95% of his team's touchdowns this season, but Cam is sort of that player inside the Carolina offense, and if it's one of these weeks where it turns into just a barn burner, I mean, on the Saints side of the ball, it could be anyone. It could be Kamara, it could be Ingram, it could be Breeze. You don't really know. At least with Carolina, if they can keep up on the scoreboard and score some points against the Saints, then it's probably going to be all Cam all the time, unless stupid Jonathan Stewart gets involved, and I don't want to even think about that scenario. But that would be my sort of pivot play at quarterback if you're looking for a high upside guy in tournaments. Tight ends, nothing out of the ordinary at tight end. Jared Cook is the most talked up tight end of the week. That's just going to be a fade for me. I hate Jared Cook, but, if you want to go with him, go nuts. Hunter Henry is next. I prefer Hunter Henry, but those 2 are going to be your super chalky guys of the week. After that, Rob Gronkowski, Delaney Walker, who's in a really nice spot if Rashard Matthews misses the game. He's only $200 more than Jared Cook. He's also a better player than Jared Cook. And the matchup is not quite equivalent because, the narrative is that the Giants, are so terrible against the tight end. But per DVOA, they're actually only 22nd. There are teams that are much worse, including the Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders, listen to me. The New York Giants going up against Oakland is what Jared Cook is getting. Houston Texans are worse, than the New York Giants when it comes to DVOA tight ends. So that's just something to look for. Julius Thomas getting talked up. Pass on Julius Thomas. Kelsey's in an interesting spot. Kyle Rudolph's in an interesting spot. And Jack Doyle, who comes in very low on this list, up against Jacksonville, $5,200. We know that in games where it's a bad matchup for T.Y. Hilton, he does absolutely nothing. I would expect that to be one of these games. And with the Jags down a linebacker, Jack Doyle could find a lot of room to venture running very short routes. So I think if you really want to pay down, pay down is relative. He's $5,200. But in cash games, I just really think that Jack Doyle has a really nice floor here. And if a lot of people aren't going to use him, I think it's a nice way to save some money. I think he's an interesting pivot off of Jared Cook to go lower in salary. I prefer Delaney Walker, but if you want to go down a little bit to find sort of that middle ground between Cook and Hunter Henry, Jack Doyle presents a very interesting case this week up against Jacksonville. And finally, defenses. I'll make this super easy for you. I'll read out the list here. Here's who you expect to be the chalkiest defenses. Chargers, Jags, Raiders, Titans, Bears, Ravens, Broncos, Pats, Steelers on Monday night. Then the Saints, and then the Rams, I believe it is. No, it's actually the Raiders, who I would not use because I still can't believe the Raiders are number 3 in tags this week. It's still throwing me all out of sorts. Don't think Jacksonville will end up being the second highest owned defense because I don't think people will pay up. I would expect the Chargers and Titans. And listen, the Titans don't have a great defense either, so I'd kind of watch out for that. But the Ravens being 6th on this list absolutely blows my mind. If that's the case, just use the Ravens. The Ravens have the #1 DVOA defense this season. They're going up against a team with a bad offensive line in Detroit. They always play better at home. They have 3 shutouts this season. Like, this is a great spot for the Ravens defense, and they seem massively underpriced. You could have the crappy Tennessee defense, albeit in a better matchup, for $500 more than you can have the way better Ravens defense. Like, that doesn't process to me. I don't understand that. The other defense that I kind of like down here, only because, the Carolina offense is a bit banged up, and they don't have a great offensive line to begin with, and the Saints do have a top 10 pass rush, that the Saints at $2,800 could be a nice tournament play. We've seen the Saints defense come through for us before, and they're better at home. If they get into a lead in this game, Cam could have to pass a lot, and the Saints defense could tee off on him, where Cam tries to extend so many plays with his legs, it leaves him vulnerable to accepting a lot of sacks, which is a really nice base for any sort of fantasy defense, and especially one that we know can get to the quarterback. So I'm surprised the Saints aren't higher on this list. The Bears are the other sort of GPP play that I like, although a lot of people seem to like them. They come in number 5 on this list. Again, still rather play them than the Tennessee Titans and the Oakland Raiders. So hopefully people just use them, and their terrible defenses just continue to be terrible. The Ravens have like 1 interception this year. Like, get over yourselves, people. I know Geno sucks, but the Raiders defense is like the defensive version of Geno Smith, so deal with that. Anyway, that's going to do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. You can subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Audio Boom for the audio versions, and up on the DraftKings YouTube page for the video versions. If you want to check out my updated rankings, they updated right now up on DKPlaybook.com. And if you just subscribe to my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme, has all my content and a few extra bonus clips too, with some hot takes and everything like that. It's the best place to find all the information of the week if you're not using the links template, which is at the top of every single one of my articles. All right? Good luck in week 13. Go win some monies, all right? Hopefully some DJ Foster monies. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.